Are the Saints and Mickey Loomis set to move on from Derek Carr? Can New Orleans find the next franchise quarterback, ladies and gentlemen, off the bench? T-Bob, Jacob Hester. Sensitive subject, okay? But it is worth the discussion. Now, before we even get into this, I want you, at least from my side of things, this is strictly a financial / changing of the guard situation. I think Carr has been good for the Saints. I think Carr has been fine. I think he's been serviceable at times, good at other times. It is what it is, okay? Here's the deal. The Saints are in the middle of or at the beginning of, an enormous changing of the guard. We're talking about, more than likely, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new offensive system, new personnel, new defensive coordinator, new defensive system. We are talking about within the next 2 years having almost a full roster turnover. We're talking veterans gone, drafted players who have been lifetime Saints gone. Some of them already gone. Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis. Players like that within the next 2 seasons will retire. Some will retire at the end of this season, okay? Offensively, we're talking about wide receivers. Michael Thomas was gone last year. Chris Olave, who knows what's going to happen to him. Beyond that, we're going to have all new receivers, okay? So, enormous turnover, enormous changing of the guard. What doesn't fit with that is a high contract 34-year-old quarterback. Doesn't fit, all right? Again, nothing against Carr. I think he's been good. Kudos, Carr. Okay, cool. Didn't work out. It is what it is. Is it all his fault? No. But I would be surprised if they can, I think they'll move off of him. If they cannot, because of other financial situations or timing or whatever, then it is what it is. But as far as like a long-term future, hard to imagine they're going to bring in somebody that is going to come in and say, you know what? Let's keep Derek Carr around for a couple of years. I think a salary cap, issue riddled team. I think what they need is 34-year-old quarterback on a high salary.
Joined by the legend himself, New Orleans .football, Nick Underhill, Nick_Underhill on Twitter.
My apologies. The backdrop, T-Bob, Jacob Hester, and Nick Underhill.
New Orleans .football, excellent YouTube channel, even better website. You get access to it all when you subscribe. I've been a proud subscriber for many, many moons now. Good Christmas gift idea, guys, for the Saints fan in your family.
True. That's a good point. True. Great Christmas gift if you want to know, like, hey, what the hell can I get somebody? New Orleans .football yearly subscription would be fantastic. I know that I have recently asked for the Racetrack Network subscription on my Christmas list so I can watch horse racing all year long from any track. So, little word of the wise, don't get your loved one involved in horse racing, okay? It is what it is. You'd be better off getting them heroin. But, yeah, New Orleans .football would be a fantastic Christmas gift idea. Great stocking stuffer.
Buy them a little stubby, and all of a sudden they're going to just be in your ear constantly telling you details and anecdotes about this team that you never knew before. Nick, what's up, brother? How's it going today?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing very well, man. Enjoying a beautiful wintry Christmas morning here, and enjoying another Saints win. And what was probably one of the most unwatchable football games of all time. And
Nick was there. He was there.
I mean, look, in terms of this, elite background noise, right? Keep it on. You do stuff around the house. You check in every now and then. Some plays being made. And then certainly there was some frustration at the end when it looked like you were going to blow it. But at that moment, what a play by Brian Brzee to come up with the dub. Saints beat the Giants 14-11. In a season where you can paint anything as negative, Nick, or, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, what was your main takeaway from the win on Sunday?
Honest takeaway, I mean, given the circumstances that your quarterback gets hurt and you're going to be playing a backup the next 4 weeks or the next couple weeks or whatever it's going to be, and your odds of winning games and making the playoffs are damn near gone. I feel like this is a game we're going to look back at when they're like a pick away from getting the best quarterback in the draft and being
Hey, by the way, we look ahead line is New Orleans plus 13.5 against the Packers. So if that tells you anything about the power ranking of this team without Derek Carr, ooh, mama.
Like, man, if he hadn't blocked that field goal, what was the point of winning that game?
No.
And I'm the Grinch on this.
We were 5.5 at Kansas City, and we're currently 13.5 at Green Bay.
This one, I'm the Grinch on it. Honestly, I mean, I don't feel like the playoff thing is at all realistic anymore. And there's no way you're beating the Commanders with Jake Haener at quarterback. I don't think. I mean, maybe they'll surprise us, but I just right now coming out of it, I feel like the long-term benefit of the team would have been it's draft pick now, and I know that probably pisses some people off, and there's people that are up pro draft pick. There are people that are, against that line of thinking, and I get it. I mean, you want to see them win games. You don't want to see them lose to the Giants. That's really demoralizing.
Yeah.
But the long-term big picture here, I don't know. I mean, I feel like they aren't, I feel like the odds of making the playoffs are pretty low right now.
I want to be clear. I have no illusions about the playoffs. Like that.
Yeah, let me make that clear. I don't think we're going to make the playoffs. And I don't think there's any way we beat the Commanders with Jake Haener. And I don't think there's any way we beat the Packers with Jake Haener. So, yeah, I don't think the playoffs are reasonable. I'm not factoring that in at all. My biggest gripe, the reason I say this every time it's brought up, is that I do not believe there is correlation between a high draft pick and nailing the draft. Just because you have the first overall pick, it gives you more chances to nail the draft because obviously you have the entire pool. But it is not a guarantee. It is not correlated with success. We have proven that time after time after time after time again. You go through and look at top 5 picks every year. It's like, man, this is kind of like if you look at the top 5 picks and then 6 through 10, and you do that over the course of 20 years, or you do that over the course of however many years you want, I would assume it's probably pretty equal. I don't think it would be. I'd be stunned if the 1 through 5 over the long run was markedly better than 6 through 10.
That's not all where I'm saying, but I also maybe not if you lost this game to your point, but now like you're not getting the pick. All those teams with 3 wins beneath you are not winning 5 games. So it kind of is what it is. Like I don't know, man. Again, I just think there is something to be said for the pride displayed as a professional on Sunday to go out there and win that game. How'd you feel about your boy, Kendre Miller? Overall, the stats, nothing too special, but that touchdown run was pretty awesome. Is Kendre...
The Kendre stuff is so funny, man. Like, Kendre, I kept seeing a lot of people after the game, they were like, I thought Kendre was great. It's like, Kendre averaged 3 yards a carry. It's like, oh, well, yeah, never mind. He looked cool. It's like, yeah, he looked dynamic, I guess, at certain times. He looked dynamic for about 3.2 yards. I mean, he didn't do anything. Like, it's just crazy when you have something in your head and you're like, man, like he showed flashes. Where? Where were the flashes? The run was cool, but I mean, it was obviously like a ton of people pushing the pile. But it's just one of those things where it's like,
Kendre Miller, are we thinking he might be a piece going forward?
Well, just going back to your previous point, like I don't disagree that the professionalism and all that stuff's great. It really is. It really is. It's good to see him still fighting, still going for it. The Rizzy fight for the job is still alive. All that stuff is really good. All I'm saying is if you bring the Giants up to 3, now there's only 1 2-win team, and you're sitting on 4 with 4 games to go, and your backup quarterback in there,
you're in a good
spot.
Your
possibility of getting into the top 5 is actually kind of maybe realistic.
True.
And that's not a terrible thing to kind of have, is the wheels might be coming off here down the final 4 games. This might have been the last hoorah. And if the last hoorah is beating the Giants 14-11 on a blocked field goal, I don't know. Maybe it is kind of fitting for the season. As far as Kendre goes, I thought he played great. I mean, this is kind of what we see every single time we see him on the field, though. Like he runs hard. There's life to him that, just kind of shows up on the field. There's pop to him. Runs hard, plays hard. I think he's a good player. He just has to show he can stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, like down the stretch, and you get Brzee going down the stretch, and you see
I will say, like, I'm being unfair to Kendre, I think, for a little bit there, but because it's not all about just like the end yardage. I don't think yards per carry is the only way you can judge somebody. But I thought Kendre did look dynamic when he got the ball, and when he, again, like you can only say that. You can only say that it's almost like if a quarterback shows like a rocket arm but doesn't complete a pass, it's like, yeah, it looked good. The results were not there, but you could see something. There's something there. There's way more to Kendre Miller than Jamal Williams.
More moments from Alante, like that pass break up the neighbors, or some plays from Kool-Aid. Like there are a couple little bright spots here, maybe going down the stretch of the season. He would definitely be one of them. If he can show he can stay healthy, I would feel a little bit better about next season. I mean, you could maybe look at him then and like count on him for a little something. Whereas right now it's kind of like he's a guy on the team, and if he gives you something great, but you can't count on him being part of the solution to anything. And if you could change that narrative a little bit, I think that would be a huge benefit down the stretch to the season.
Nick, will Derek Carr be the starting quarterback week 1 of next season?
Woo! Hell of a question. If I had to bet, I would say no. I think it makes way more sense that he is not than that he is. And again, to no fault of his own, it's just kind of the circumstances. Now, if you told me Rizzy was coming back, I would say probably. But I'm assuming it's going to be a complete overhaul of the coaches.
It's a great question. It's so hard to analyze it, because if you're a coach coming in and you have Derek Carr, maybe it gives you a chance to like actually survive beyond 3 years. And if you get off to the right start, he's obviously going to help you win games. If you tear it down and you cut him, you basically have zero cap dollars to do anything else. You're filling out your.
Yeah. I mean, and that's that. Here's the crux of it. Option 1 is you cut Carr and you draft a quarterback. Option 2 is you keep Carr, gives you a veteran, journeyman, mid-level quarterback, and you can kind of rebuild in other places, and then you can find your quarterback. Now, the whole reason I say I don't think Carr is going to be the guy is because I think you reach this apex of the Saints are going to have a high draft pick. Quarterbacks will be available. I think the Saints will get a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator. So, depending on that coach, if that coach is in love with Cam Ward or Quinn Ewers or how it plays out, Shedeur Sanders or whatever, whoever it ends up being, if that coach falls in love with that player, that's how it's going to be. And that might be the whole reason the coach takes the job is, well, I'm taking this job because we have the 5th overall pick and I want to draft Cam Ward. That might be a realistic situation. Now, you could also argue best case scenario is you keep Carr, draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or Quinn Ewers or whoever, just using one name. I don't have a preference, but it's not Quinn Ewers, I'll tell you that much. But the best case scenario might be, okay, well, you keep Carr, draft the quarterback, let the quarterback sit behind Carr. And if that ends up being what happens, like that Derek Carr is just kind of this bridge quarterback thing for a drafted rookie, it's kind of like getting half of this question right. When I say Derek Carr is not going to be the starting quarterback, what I really should rephrase is Derek Carr is not the franchise destination quarterback. He is not the long-term. He is not the plan. He is not the future of this team because of what I just laid out with his new vision, new coaching staff, new front office, or not front office, but new identity. All right. He may physically be the week 1 starter, but it would be just to more than likely hand off the baton to whoever the other quarterback is. That's how I see it playing out. Again, no problem with Carr, but I think that's how it's going to go.
Your roster with league minimum players, but if you're looking at it like, hey, like what's the better path forward? To me, look, it's hard to talk about Derek Carr because there's these camps of like absolutism where he's either the best quarterback in the world to some people and he's unfairly judged and everybody's super negative and it's unfair, or he's the worst quarterback to ever play and he never does anything right.
He is the most polarizing quarterback, I think, in the NFL, and I'm absolutely floored every time I read the comments because Nick is 100% correct. Every single video, I have both troops in the comments, and some of them really believe that Derek Carr is the best quarterback in the NFL, and some people really believe that he shouldn't even be a starter in the NFL. I have said this a million times. I think Derek Carr is smack dab in the middle of the quarterback ranking. Before the season, I think I had him at 19 or 17. I think it was 17. Right now, I would say he's played better than some of the other guys in that tier. Like Dak Prescott hasn't really played, so like Carr would be above Dak. But I would have him at like 15. I would have him bang in the middle. And it's crazy that a bang in the middle mid-tier level quarterback has that kind of polarity to where, because like it's crazy to think about someone saying Geno Smith is the best quarterback in the NFL. It's also crazy to think about someone saying that Geno Smith shouldn't even be a starter. It's crazy to think someone could say like, oh no, I think like Kirk Cousins, I guess. I think Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in the NFL. That would be crazy. It would be equally as crazy for someone to say Derek or Kirk Cousins shouldn't even be starting on any team, right? So it blows my mind that Carr has that polarity. I can understand if someone's like, I think Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in the NFL. No, I think it's Joe Burrow. No, I think it's Josh Allen. Like those guys, all those guys have an argument at who's the best, right? But to have both arguments, like no one's going to say Lamar Jackson shouldn't be a starter. No one's going to say Joe Burrow shouldn't be a starter. To have both arguments is nuts. I can't think of another quarterback since I've been watching in the NFL, certainly since I've been covering the NFL, that would have that like duality of simultaneously being argued for to be the best and then not even top 32. It's absolutely crazy to watch.
I think he exists somewhere in the middle. And if you put him with the Bucs, like he could probably be similar to Baker. If you put him with Minnesota, they're probably still a playoff team. Is he the right quarterback on a team with cap issues that can't really fill out their roster around him and are going to ask him at times to win games for him? I would say the answer is no. I don't think he's the right quarterback for this team, but that doesn't mean he isn't the right quarterback for a certain team. So if you want to start that process, I think getting rid of him, I think that gets you maybe on a path to more healing, I guess. Like if you go and get like an $8 million replacement level quarterback, that's probably a better situation than paying 33 or whatever the APY is for him. I will say this, like I've watched that play now. It's got to be 100 times. And I don't understand it. I don't understand what he was thinking in that moment. It's 2nd and 10.
The Rizzler. He was fired up, dude. He's fired up trying to put.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a situation like, you do stupid stuff, like who the hell knows? Like I remember, this is the worst comparison ever, but I remember playing a flag football game. It was with friends. It was like during Thanksgiving break. This is a long time ago. And I dove behind a guy who was running to try and grab his flag. Dove, and his cleat came up and hit me and cut my eyelid open. Like right on the eyelid. Thank God I had closed my eyes or it would have cut my eye. But cut my eyelid and had to go to the emergency room, had to get glue, all that stuff. And it's like, looking back, it's like, why the hell are you diving in a flag football game, like on Thanksgiving break? Like, why would, like, who cares? But in the moment, sometimes it's just like things happen. And, Derek Carr's, I don't know why the hell he had the ball, like why the read option or the play was designed for him to run. But in that moment, he's not thinking, well, let me just step out of bounds. He's probably thinking, I can't step out of bounds because I'll stop the clock. So he may be thinking like, I got to do whatever I can. I can't slide here. It's too late. Oh, well, jump. You can't fault a player for going balls to the wall in that
Put
moment.
it on for the boys, dude.
Yeah.
Laying
I
his body
get it.
out there. Everybody gushed over Spencer Rattler lowering his shoulder in preseason.
I thought that was dumb too, though. Like, I thought that was dumb too. Like, it's 2nd and 10. Your playoff hope, like if you win this game, you're 2 games back. You play the Bucks once. Like, you actually.
I put that way more on Kubiak than Carr. I put it on Kubiak of like, dude, just hand the ball off. Toss it to Kamara. Do something else. Why is Derek Carr in a position that he should have the ball in that spot? Now, if it was Carr's decision, if Kubiak was expecting him to hand it off to Alvin, or that's a whole different story. But I don't really fault Carr for the play.
Actually have a realistic playoff shot. Just step out of bounds. The optimal play there is to slide even a yard earlier and keep the clock running. If you aren't going to have that 100%. Awareness, like, step out of bounds. Do not launch yourself into a hit. I don't understand it. And I get it. Before I even knew he was hurt, when I seen him do it, I audibly said, WTF, out loud. I didn't understand what was happening, why he was doing it. I didn't like the play. I don't know what the motivation was. I get it. I do know what the motivation is. He's trying to give it up for the team and everything, but man, live to fight another down in that situation. That was not a, I don't know. My personal take on it, I did not like that play. I would have liked a better decision, but I'm also a guy who, when Alvin is, 11 yards down the field and he steps out of bounds instead of taking a hit, I'm do that, because the better thing here is not to fight for the yard and to be at your best on December 20th or whatever. Whereas other people are like, what is he doing? Fight for the yard. If it's a pointless yard, there's yards worth fighting for and there are yards that aren't. I don't feel like that was a yard that was worth fighting for.
Not WTF, Nick, WWE. It kind of looked like a WWE bit when he was laying on the ground too. But then I was like, oh, wait, no, he's actually really hurt. Wow.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation. It's a very complex. Let me go back to the Carr contract, the whole thing. It is an incredibly complex situation. It is not as simple as, is he good or is he bad? There is a mixture of motivations where you're going to have a front office dealing with, think about the decision tree. You got a front office deciding who is even going to be the coaches. Darren Rizzi, Clint Kubiak, Joe Woods, their entire staffs, who's even going to be there? Okay, well then what's the identity of the team? Okay, what draft pick do we have? Okay, well who's there? Who are we targeting to draft? What can we do? Can we move around? Do we like a player enough? Okay, let's say we're not going with Rizzi and Kubiak and co. Who's coming in? What do they want? What's their identity? What's their philosophy? Then after all of that, then it comes down to, all right, well, we know we're in a pseudo rebuild. We know that. We know this team right now is not very good. We know that over the next couple of years, a multitude of contracts either will expire or the players will retire. I mean, we're talking about Taysom Hill, Ryan Ramczyk, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, just to name a couple. That is a lot of players who have been here for a long time. So then you have to decide, in a very unique and complex salary cap situation, okay, how do we move the books around to facilitate rebuilding this team? How do we do this? Do we want to take the hit now? Do we want to offload contracts now? Because if you do, then a contract like Carr's is one you do want to offload. And I don't know the intricacies of all of that, all of the jumping through the hoops and salary cap this and taking a hit there and June 1 versus whatever. I'm not going to pretend like I do know the salary cap stuff. So all of those things come into play. And a lot of those check marks, a lot of those, okay, well, what if? A lot of them do diverge into Derek Carr not being the starting quarterback. For example, bringing a coach in who wants to draft a quarterback. For example, hey, let's take some of the salary cap on the chin. All of those things. There was a lot of divergence where it equals Derek Carr's not on this team. I do think it makes sense to say, well, we can draft a quarterback, let him sit behind Carr, gives us more time to develop. He's under contract anyways. We're not in the position to move off of him. That makes sense too. But it's a legitimate fork in the road. And this fork in the road has about 20 different outcomes. So the idea that this decision is simply is Derek Carr good? Check yes or no. That's just not it. What it also isn't is, do you think you can win a Super Bowl with Derek Carr? Do you think you can do this with Derek Carr? Because the team isn't good enough to win a Super Bowl. The roster isn't good enough to make the playoffs, to win the NFC, to win the division, to make a legitimate run. So even that, like if you peel that layer back, that's not even the conversation, right? Like the conversation isn't, well, maybe if we're healthy next year, then maybe we can compete for the NFC. Not the conversation. We don't have wide receivers. We don't have players. Like we have to build this entire roster. So it's complex. It's unique. A lot of stuff goes into it. And I'll tell you this right now, we'll be covering every single damn second of it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.